$997 billion. That's what the United States spent on defense in 2024, more than the next 9 countries combined. China, $314 billion. Russia, $84 billion. The gap isn't closing, it's widening. And that number? That's just the visible budget. The classified programs, the black sites, the projects with no names, those don't show up in congressional reports. But here's what does show up: 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, each one a floating city, each one carrying more firepower than most countries' entire air forces. The rest of the world combined operates 4 carriers of comparable size. This isn't a military. This is a case file on asymmetry. And the question people ask, could anyone invade the United States, isn't really a question. It's a thought experiment that ends the same way every time. Let me show you why. Start with geography. 2 oceans. Atlantic to the east, 5,000 kilometers from Europe. Pacific to the west, 8,000 kilometers from China. North, Canada. Friendly. Integrated defense systems. Shared intelligence. Not a threat. South, Mexico. Economic partner. Border cooperation agreements. Not staging an invasion. Every other major power in history fought land wars on their borders. Britain had the Channel, 32 kilometers of water. Still got invaded by Vikings, Normans, threatened constantly. The United States has fish. That's the term a historian used. Canadians, Mexicans, and fish. No predatory neighbors. No historical enemies within reach. No ancient territorial disputes requiring standing armies on the frontier. Just distance. And distance compounds. Try to visualize the logistics. D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in history, required crossing the English Channel. 32 kilometers. The Allies assembled 150,000 troops, 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft. It took 2 years of planning. Required air superiority. Relied on land bases in England, 100 kilometers away. Now scale that to the Pacific. 8,000 kilometers of open ocean. No friendly staging ground. No land bases for air cover. Every ship burns fuel. Every plane needs refueling. Every soldier needs food, water, ammunition. An amphibious assault requires not just getting troops to shore. It requires sustaining them, resupplying them under fire, reinforcing them continuously, across 8,000 kilometers. No navy on Earth has that capability. Not China, not Russia, not a coalition. And here's what they'd face on arrival. The United States Navy operates 11 carrier strike groups. Each group, roughly 7,500 personnel. 1 aircraft carrier, 2 cruisers, multiple destroyers, submarines, supply ships. Each carrier, 70 to 80 aircraft. F/A, 18 Super Hornets. F-35C Lightning IIs. E-2 Hawkeyes. Electronic warfare platforms. These groups patrol the Atlantic, Pacific, Mediterranean, South China Sea. Rotating deployments. Continuous presence. Global coverage. An invasion fleet crossing either ocean would be detected weeks out. Satellite surveillance. Submarine tracking. Over-the-horizon radar. AWACS monitoring. The U.S. has been tracking Soviet subs since the 1950s. Russian boomers since the 70s. Chinese submarines since the 90s. An invasion fleet, hundreds of slow-moving transport ships, would light up every sensor array from Hawaii to Guam to Alaska. And carrier strike groups would converge. Not after the landing. During the crossing. Sink the transports mid-ocean, and the invasion dies in deep water. No reinforcements. No retreat. Just fuel slicks and wreckage. That's the naval problem. It gets worse on land. Say somehow, against every strategic calculation, an invasion force reaches shore. California coast. Texas. Florida. Doesn't matter. They'd need to establish a beachhead. Unload equipment. Bring in armor, artillery, supplies. While under fire from U.S. military installations. Naval Air Station, North Island. Camp Pendleton. 29 Palms. Air Force bases across California and Texas. Army bases. National Guard armories. The U.S. has 800 military installations. Worldwide. 160,000 troops deployed overseas. On U.S. soil, 1.3 million active duty personnel. 800,000 in reserve. 400,000 National Guard. And they're not defending Moscow or Beijing. They're defending home ground. With supply lines measured in kilometers. Not thousands. With air bases 10 minutes away. Not 10 hours. with depots, armories, fuel reserves already in place. An invasion force would face air strikes within the first hour, artillery within the second, armor within the day, and even if, by some miracle, they secured a 50-kilometer beachhead, then what? Cross-country invasion requires infrastructure, roads, rails, bridges, fuel depots every 200 kilometers, food distribution, medical facilities. The U.S. military has spent 70 years building that network globally. Bases in Germany, Japan, Korea, Guam, Diego Garcia. An invasion force would have a beachhead in hostile territory, under constant air attack, with supply lines stretching back across an ocean. The Wehrmacht couldn't sustain a push to Moscow, 3,000 kilometers, with land-based supply lines. An invader would try to sustain operations across an entire continent, while fighting the world's most powerful military, with supplies coming by ship, across 8,000 kilometers of monitored ocean. Logistics alone makes it impossible. But there's a detail most analysis misses. 393 million firearms, civilian-owned, in the United States. That's 120 firearms per 100 people. Highest rate in the world by double. 42% of households have at least one gun. In rural areas, where an invasion force would need to move, that number is 47%. Former military veterans, 18 million. People with combat training. People who know fieldcraft, tactics, marksmanship, living in every town between the coasts. An occupying force doesn't just fight the military. They fight the population. And this population is armed. Insurgency in Iraq and Afghanistan against rural populations with AK-47s and improvised explosives lasted 20 years, tied down hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops. Now imagine that in reverse. An invading army trying to control American suburbs, small towns, rural counties, where the locals have hunting rifles, AR-15s, shotguns, know the terrain, know the roads, and have zero intention of cooperating. You can't hold ground without population control, and you can't control a population that outnumbers you and outguns you. That's the insurgency math. It's never worked for occupiers. It won't work here. Then there's the nuclear problem. The United States maintains a nuclear triad. Land-based ICBMs, 450 Minuteman III missiles in silos across Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming. Strategic bombers, B-52s, B-2 Spirits, armed with nuclear gravity bombs and cruise missiles. Ballistic missile submarines, 14 Ohio-class subs. Each carries 24 Trident II missiles. Each missile carries multiple warheads. At any given time, several subs are on patrol. Location unknown. Undetectable. One submarine carries enough firepower to destroy an entire country. You can't invade a nuclear power. Not because they'll use nukes on the battlefield. Because the invasion itself becomes an existential threat. And existential threats trigger existential responses. Game theory is clear. No rational actor invades a nuclear state. Because even if you win the conventional fight, you lose everything in the retaliation. So here's the case summary. Geography. 2 oceans, 8,000 kilometers from any hostile power. Naval dominance. 11 carrier groups. Unmatched global presence. Military superiority. Nearly $1 trillion in annual spending. 1.3 million active duty personnel. 800 bases worldwide. Air supremacy. 1,400 fighters, strategic bombers, global reach within hours. Civilian resistance. 393 million firearms. 18 million veterans, population trained and armed. Nuclear deterrent. 6,000 warheads, submarine-based second strike capability, mutual assured destruction. Every layer compounds. You can't cross the ocean undetected. You can't survive the naval interdiction. You can't establish a beachhead under air assault. You can't sustain supply lines across hostile waters. You can't control a population that outnumbers and outguns you. And you can't win if the target has 6,000 nuclear warheads in reserve. Not one of these is a minor obstacle. Any single one is enough to stop an invasion. Together, it's not a defense. It's a wall. But here's what the analysis misses. This isn't about capability. It's about cost. Russia couldn't invade the U.S. Not because they don't want to. Because attempting it would cost their entire military 4-0 chance of success. China could theoretically build the fleet, assemble the transports, train the troops, and they'd lose it all in the first week. For no strategic gain. Because even if you somehow took a city, you can't hold it. Even if you held it, you can't expand. Even if you expanded, you can't win. And the attempt destroys you. That's why no one tries. Not because America is loved. Because the cost-benefit is stark. Invasion, certain catastrophic loss. Outcome, failure. The math doesn't work. It's never worked. It won't work. Compare this to historical vulnerabilities.